Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture.
We don't have Alexis here today to come in hot on the microphone.
I know. I was like, who's going to jump in, right?
I know. It's one of those things we're so used to her coming in with, what's the word I'm looking for? Pizzazz, energy.
Aggression.
Aggression's a good one.
Sorry, Brett. I was throwing that softball out there. I knew you would knock it out and be real about it. Yes, absolutely. With a random topic. I don't know, Brett. Do you have a random topic to talk about to lead us in today?
I have a question, and I think it'll dovetail nicely with. We have a guest on today, John, who's going to be introducing himself here in a little bit, and you'll see why this makes sense. But I went up to Home Depot recently I had a day off, and sometimes on my day off in the morning, I like to go up and piddle around Home Depot like an old man, just sort of look at the new tools. And
I can get expensive, Brett. Be careful.
Well, that's what people say, but I usually don't buy anything. I just kind of walk around and look at light bulbs.
Make a wish list, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But I noticed, we at that point, it was not even yet Halloween. And I noticed that they have out all of the Christmas decorations.
Yes, I noticed that at some other hardware stores and box stores.
How do we feel about that?
That it comes quicker every year is my knee jerk reaction to that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I love the holiday seasons, but I mean, let's do one at a time, not all at once.
I think per our last podcast episode, you all know my opinions on it, where I'm like, we like Thanksgiving first. Then we go into the Christmas stuff.
I think it's harder to, just, from the couch perspective, it's kind of harder to monetize Thanksgiving as far as the decorations go. And my wife and I have had a lot of discussions about that. In the neighborhood, we're a big Halloween neighborhood decoration. We're a big Christmas decoration neighborhood, lots of young kids, and it's a whole thing in our neighborhood. But Thanksgiving reads where are all the turkeys and fodder shocks? I'm like, I know, buddy. I know. There's very few Halloween outside decorations, unless you just count general fall decorations, I guess. And there's some of that, but maybe it's that. But you, Jessica, it seems like we go straight from Halloween to Christmas.
I think what ties it, and it ties in great with our topic today. My purpose of it is we get a live Christmas tree. Right? Every year. So that's kind of my other thing of why we're not, I'm not getting a Christmas tree up early because we are waiting until, it is time to go get your live Christmas tree. Right? Because I can't really put one up the 1st of November and expect it to be looking great by Christmas.
I never thought about it, but you could always buy 2. Support the industry, Jessica. Buy 2, maybe even 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Rotate stock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's not a trouble at all, right?
No. That's not a hassle
with small children.
Yeah. That drink the water right out of the Christmas tree.
Well, John, I'd like to hear your perspective, but maybe it might be useful to tell our audience who you are before weighing in on what you think about the earlier and earlier window of Christmas decor.
Sure. Well, I'm John Bednarski, and we started Sherwood Acres LLC about 20 years ago as direct marketing beef farmers, and just recently added a new business to the list and started producing and planting, I should say, Christmas trees about 4 years ago on the farm to become a little bit more diversified, but it was something that we did with our children, growing up, and they were growing up, and I did it as a child growing up in Vermont, to go out and cut a Christmas tree every year for Christmas, whether that was on your own farm or somebody else's farm. And so we've got the whole family involved, and just getting ready to plant this spring our 5th year of trees.
Yeah, and so from that perspective, someone who's deep in the Christmas tree game, what do you think of October Christmas displays at big box stores and Michael's and everywhere else?
Well, I think we've all heard of Christmas in July, and they're starting even before that. And obviously, as a choose and cut operation with fresh cut trees, it's a challenge to cut trees too early. Needle retention is a big thing based on species and whatnot. And so we want a tree that's going to perform properly in somebody's house. And so But the flip side is we have a retail gift shop, and we're opening this year on Black Friday. And our trees this year will actually come from another grower, so we'll get those in the week of Thanksgiving and start selling those. So I think you can get a little too early, but we love to have the opportunity of having people at the farm.
A great answer from a business person right there. That is how you do it,
Yes.
folks. Take notes on that. Yeah, well, that does adhere to Jessica's rule of we do Thanksgiving first, so that day after Thanksgiving, that's you won't be on her naughty list for celebrating Christmas
Right.
too early.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so I mean I don't have to lead this conversation, but so are you in Mercer County? What county are you in?
Yes, we're in Mercer County, and which obviously is Jessica's area, and she's been to the farm many times. And real learning curve when you start from scratch growing Christmas trees. And I think I probably told Jessica this, but if we hadn't been, and I'm a first generation farmer, if we hadn't been direct marketing beef for the last 20 years, I'm not sure that I would survive in the Christmas tree business because it is a lot of work.
Mm.
The learning curve is huge, and fortunately, we joined the Kentucky Christmas Tree Growers Association when we started planting about 4 years ago, and some of the members are long term members, and they've just been great mentors for us, as well as extension in UK because we're learning it all from scratch.
Well,
And
Jess,
you
you feel free to lead us into this,
Okay.
Jess.
I was going to say, you said something very important that I think we need to hit on with this talk is about how challenging it is to grow Christmas trees. I think that's a big misconception that you can just put some trees out there. They'll, do their thing, and you come back in a couple of years and you cut them down and you have a Christmas tree farm, right? And you have like the perfect, winter wonderland setup for it. But it is a lot that goes into it. And John, do you care to just share a little bit about like just general production or a general like seasonal overview? Because you're busy all year round with those trees. It's not just, at harvest time with them.
Right. We definitely are. And there's all different levels in our membership of how people do, choose and cut or growing Christmas trees. And, my sister and her husband live next door. He's an electrical engineer, so very technical and very helpful on certain parts of it. I've been in the construction business, building business for 40 years, and also in the cattle business for 20 years. And so, my daughter's involved on the social media side, my sister's involved on the marketing side. And so we've got a whole group really with all of the knowledge that we need to hopefully be successful. But it still depends on keeping that Christmas tree alive. And so every spring, we plant between 1,000 and 2,000 Christmas trees on an area that we prepare, hopefully in the fall of the year or early spring to be able to do that. And um, this year is a great example of Mother Nature raising havoc because we were 10 to 12 inches above normal rainfall, and the trees kind of get used to that, and then all of a sudden there's no rain, and so we we decided early on in this Kentucky climate that we would put in irrigation. So we have about 5,000 trees in the ground right now, 4,000 at my place, and then my sister and brother-in-law live next door, and they've got about 1,000 trees, and so they're all under irrigation. So you say, well, that's great. As soon as the rain stops, you start the irrigation, and everything's just great and just fine. Well, it doesn't work that way because you're dealing with high temperatures, you're dealing with wind
Mhm.
speed, there's all kinds of things that have an effect on how much you water those trees. So and I would say out of the 35 or 40 members that we have in the Kentucky Christmas Tree Association, there's probably only a few that irrigate. And I think to be successful, you've got to do that. And I think we figured it out one time. It's about $2.50 a tree to put in irrigation. Now, the cost of water is another story, but
Mhm.
that's what our cost is. And so, in the cost of buying a Christmas tree goes up every year. We're planting 12 to 18 inch trees in the ground. We auger every one of them in. when we plant. And so, but our losses could be anywhere from 5 to 10% of a crop that's planted. But people that are not irrigating, that are doing what Jessica said, that are just planting the trees and hoping they'll live, they could have 70, 80, 90%. They could lose a whole crop in a year. And we're just not willing to put that time into the planting and setting up all of the things that you need to make it work, and just leave it on its own.
Is that just irrigation, John? I know there's lots of types of irrigation. Is that just lines that lay along the ground? Because I'm thinking about operations like mowing and maintenance.
Right. Yeah. We use drip irrigation.
Drip.
So we actually, we put them on grids, and you can plant between 1,000 and 1,500 trees per acre, depending on your grid spacing. And so we space, and it's taken us a few years to figure out what's the best formula for doing that. But right now we're planting our trees 8 feet apart, and the rows are 8 feet apart, and then the trees are 6 foot apart. And then where we lay that orchard tubing down and that drip irrigation, we actually we kill the grass so that we don't have to mow that. But I literally mow 4,000 trees once a week or once every week and a half during that grass growing season to maintain that.
We had started a conversation at the very beginning, just before we started recording, and that was one of the biggest things. I took over a small Christmas tree operation for a couple of years when I was at Brewery College, and I was like, Brett, you put them in the ground, or Jessica, one of you guys said that, and you just harvest them. Not much work, right? But then I quickly learned that just the mowing, the shearing, the shaping, the insect control that's necessary sometimes, all of that, just there's lots of maintenance for that first 7-10 years, whatever it takes to produce your first crop of trees, John. There's a lot that goes into that you continually have to do while you're waiting on those trees to size up, isn't there?
Yeah, and I always joke with people. I kind of compare us to the bourbon industry, where you're making that white dog, and you're putting it in a barrel, and then you're waiting 4 and 5 and 6 years. And we have an annual crop, but not for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that can happen during those first 7 to 8 years. And we continually go back, and this year our losses were a little bit higher, but continually go back and replant those trees in those spaces. And Jessica would be able to comment on this, but probably some of the biggest challenges, and you mentioned insects, probably deer is probably one of our biggest
I
pressures.
wanted to mention that because I want you to share about your brother-in-law's invention to deal with the deers for a while, because it was pretty cool. If it's still working, right?
Yeah, it
Hopefully.
is. Yeah,
Good.
yeah. He calls it the Deerinator. It's an electronic, solar charged, like a windsock that comes up out of the ground when the deer pass it. There's a sensor, and then there's I believe it's a German Shepherd that's barking to scare the deer. And so that it has some use, and but after a while, the deer get used to some of that stuff, and it doesn't really seem to bother it. But he has done something this year that we've done a little bit of in previous years, and that's fencing, but not building an 8 or 10 foot fence, which is typically what you would need to do. We're using electric cattle fencing, 2 rows, an inner row closer to the trees, 4 foot stick in the ground or pushing the ground posts, electrified, and then come back 2 or 3 feet with a single strand in between those. And the deer supposedly have a depth perception problem, and he's monitoring that with cameras, and he's had very little activity. Our fields with our 4,000 trees are pretty broke up, and that's a challenge to do that. And so we've done some of that, but there's sprays out there, but we're just now seeing the bucks are in rut, and they're out there marking the ground. And so we've got some losses. And every time we lose a tree, I look at the dollar sign.
It's the nature of the damage, John. If you could go into that a little bit, it's not necessarily chewing on the trees, but it's what? Like,
Yeah, they'll go in there with their horns, and they'll rub the branches off one side of the tree.
Yeah.
And at that point, we spent $5 or $6 for the tree, a choose and cut operation. you could receive anywhere from $100 to $150 for a tree for people coming out for the experience. So I look at that number there and I say, that's my loss, because and then some people will keep those trees in the ground because the deer will come back to those trees and continue to destroy them. But, they cut them off, the boughs off for greenery and things like that to use in other operations. Personally, I don't like to look at that tree for the next 6 or 7 years. We usually dig it out, put another tree in the ground, and go on. So deer are definitely a challenge. The weather conditions are a challenge, but one of the things that Jessica can probably talk more intelligently about than I is root rot or phytophthora, which is in the soybean and corn industry already, but that's an annual crop. And so by the time that root rot kills that plant, it's harvested. But with our tree, and it's not just here in Kentucky, it's everywhere. I mean, Western North Carolina, where there's a ton of Fraser firs grown, it's a huge, huge issue about those losses for them. And there's just not a lot of work being done to. I think in the soybean industry, they've got a phytophthora ready seed now that helps. It's a coated seed, and so. And what happens with that disease is when we pull that tree out, we send it to UK or wherever we send it to check it. It seems like it's always phytophthora, and the stress on the tree is what causes the phytophthora to kill the tree. So my question is, what's the stress? Is it too much rain? Is it not enough rain? Is it insects? Is it deer damage? What weakened the tree so that the phytophthora would kill the tree? And that's probably the most frustrating thing for us.
Right, because most of it's like environmental, right? That's out of control, out of your control. So that's what makes it extra frustrating. What were you going to say, Brett?
Oh, I was going to ask for some. I'm maybe the newbiest to this, so two questions. One is, so I'd asked ChatGPT the Latin name for Christmas tree, and they told me that there wasn't one. They're actually different species. So I wanted to see what species you grow and what other species you maybe seen folks in Kentucky either work with, struggle with, give up on, etc. And then the other one was just within those species. I'm sure there's some variability, but what are the ranges of years of production for those different species? I think there's someone's going to grow fast, something's going to grow slow or be popular. So yeah, just what species you do, and then I'd love to hear about the pruning and shaping stuff that Ray had mentioned too.
Sure. Yeah, I had talked to Ray earlier about that. When we first started, because we were beginners, we joined that Kentucky Christmas Tree Association and to see what other people were growing. No sense trying to reinvent the wheel here in the state of Kentucky. And so that first year, 4 years ago, we planted Norway spruce. We bought them, and this is just completely unheard of in the industry, but we bought 4-gallon container trees. We put 500 of them in the ground and, augered them in with 12 or 16-inch augers. These were pretty big trees, trying to get a 2 or 3 year jump on production, because I thought I'm a marketing guy. And I thought, well, if I can sell a Christmas tree for $120 to $150 in a choose and cut operation, I can spend $20 on those 500 trees and get myself a 2 or 3 year jump. Instead of 7 years in the ground, I got 5 years in the ground. And those trees we have right now, or some of them are 6 or 7 feet tall, but we're still not going to sell those trees this year. We're going to wait another year or two. We're bringing in 150 trees from another grower. And so we'll wait for those 8 or 9s or 10s for people that want a taller tree. Because we came back the following year after spending $20 a tree, and we spent $5 a tree on gallon container trees. Well, those trees, they're about 3 to 3.5 feet tall. So there's a big gap. And that's lack of knowledge and just not having everything lined up. Should have come back and planted, 4-gallon trees again, maybe for 2 more years. So that's live and learn. But we also found out that a lot of guys doing Norway spruce are doing bald and burlap trees, because Norway spruce, it's a beautiful tree, does pretty good on our soil, but needle retention is a challenge with that tree. You can't cut that tree on Thanksgiving Day and put it in the house, because by December 25th, you're going to have a customer who's not real happy with you. So, and there's all kinds of different sprays and things that help with needle retention, and those are certainly viable. So what we're going to do is we're going to have what we call Spruce Day, and Spruce Day will be about 2 weeks before Christmas. And we'll do that maybe next year or maybe 2 years from now. So we kind of changed directions and started planting fir trees. A lot of growers doing it in the state. The number one Christmas tree in the nation is Fraser fir, nationwide. And, that's what you're going to buy at Home Depot, and that's what you're going to buy at Lowe's. And those trees have tremendous needle retention. And those trees that are at Lowe's and Home Depot, those trees are being cut right now. And they're going in either cold storage, or up in Michigan. We were up there this summer at the National Christmas Tree Association meeting. They'll put them in these tall pine stands, and those trees will start going out in a couple of weeks. And
how does the Canaan and the Doug fir, like needle retention, compare to the Fraser? I mean, are those still pretty good? Do you know much about those?
Yeah, the Canaan fir, actually, the original seed stock came out of Canaan, West Virginia, and has a lot of similarities to Fraser fir. Not too many people doing Doug fir here, but the Frasers, we do have one grower of Fraser firs in the state of Kentucky who has been very, very successful, and Jessica knows who that is. And there's no secret about it. It's Tom Neiman, and Tom, his family's been in Christmas trees for generations, and he's right outside of Lexington. I'm giving him a little pitch here, but he's got probably 25,000 trees in the ground. Wow. He's 83 years old. He's my mentor, and he is still going strong. He was at UK as a professor for a number of years. He's a landscape architect, and so I've been following on his coattails, trying to figure this whole thing out. And Tom has gone in there and made all of these soil amendments to his soils to stack the deck and help those trees grow. And his comment is, if I can get those trees 2 or 3 years down the road, I'll make that into a perfect tree. And his trees are perfect, and he sells out every year. And it's a phenomenal story. So, but anyway, the Canaan fir is very similar to that. So we're planting a lot of those. Interestingly, the seeds from those trees that we buy come out of Ohio State University. They've got a stand of older trees, pine cones, and then we buy those seeds, get sent to Weyerhaeuser out on the West Coast, and those trees are grown out there, and then they are shipped back to Ohio when we buy them from a wholesaler out of Columbus, Ohio, who also has some seed stock. So it's an interesting traveling,
that it bounces back and forth. Yeah, that's interesting. Was a lot of that development background work? I know the stock came from the East Coast. Was it Ohio State that did a lot of development on that one? I believe.
Yes,
somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're huge. They've got acres and acres of these 30 and 40 foot Canaan fir trees that they're harvesting the seeds from every year and sending them out west. And it's quite a story. So in between, we've tried some other species of trees that are less susceptible to Phytophthora, and some of those varieties are exotic trees. We're doing some Turkish fir. We're doing some Korean fir. We're doing a species called concolor fir, Nordman fir. The challenge with those trees are that they're very slow growing. And so it's not a 7 or 8 year deal. And, we're looking for production. We're looking for product to sell. And that just doesn't really meet the business plan. The Canaan fir is definitely a faster grower. And so this coming year, all the trees we're planting are Canaan firs. Last year we planted some concolors and some Canaans. The concolor's just not doing great here. And that could be soil conditions, that could be climate or environment. So, it's that live and learn, doing a little bit of pine. We actually bought some Virginia pine through the Kentucky uh, uh, growers, or the Kentucky, what I don't know what the group's called, but
Division of Forestry,
yeah,
did they?
Division of
Yeah.
Forestry, and they've done pretty well. And over in some states, that's a tree that they're using. We also planted some Leland and some Murray cypress trees. That's what Christmas trees are when you get south of Tennessee, down to Tennessee and Georgia. Trying to see if those will do good in our climate.
I
So
know the white pines smell really good and they have a pretty good growth rate, but man, I try to hang a 2-pound glass Christmas bulb off of the white pine. I mean, is that kind of
yeah,
is much a
yeah,
demand
yeah.
for that?
The pines were growing. We actually, my brother-in-law's got some Scotch pine, and he's got those Virginia pines. And once you shape and shear those trees up and take some of that limb length off, they'll hold an
Good
ornament.
deal.
But we're not doing it this year, but we'll eventually get into roping and garland, and those are great products to use in that.
Mhm.
And last year, even though we weren't selling in open at our gift shop, we made about 100 Christmas trees and porch pots. And when we make a Christmas wreath, we put 5 different varieties of greenery in it. We actually use cedar, arborvitae, white pine, fir, and maybe something else. So, but typically not spruce.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You've mentioned several times, just going back to the industry in general,
mhm.
the state of things in Kentucky. You mentioned a term 2 or 3 times: choose and cut.
Yep,
Now I know there's probably different business models, wholesale versus more of an experienced based
right.
Christmas tree program. I mean, what are people doing, or what are you guys doing in Kentucky as far as how you're
Sure,
basing your business?
sure. There's really no operations in the state of Kentucky that are big enough to do wholesale. We would love to buy our Christmas trees from another grower in the state of Kentucky. That 150 trees that we want to sell this year, you know, we have 20 artisans in our gift shop this year, and every one of them is from the state of Kentucky, and nothing from overseas, nothing from out of state, and that's going to be one of our goals. And so our Christmas trees this year, we're getting them through another grower here in the state that buys a semi load out of Western North Carolina. So almost everybody that I know of, or really everybody that I know of in the state of Kentucky, and in terms of membership, is a choose and cut operation. It's really, when you're small, depending upon how many trees a year you're going to do, it's really the only way to make any kind of money at
So
it.
more of a agritourism destination kind of experience.
Absolutely. And that's really been the business model for our beef farming. We sold direct, and still continue to sell direct. And, you know, but you got to love people. You got to love people on your farm, and you better be passionate about what you're doing, or else it doesn't work. And it's interesting when you see people getting into the industry here in the state. I can almost tell you the ones that are going to make it and the ones that aren't, just based on, how much effort they're going to put in, like Jessica talked about. And are they people, do they love people? And, if you're going to bring people to your farm, you better love people.
Well, it sounds like you had some very formative experiences. Was it Vermont you said you grew up in?
I
And
did. I
that
grew up in Vermont, and then I moved to Kentucky in 1980 with a log home and timber frame producer, and I just retired from them after 40 years. So I've been in the wood business really all my life. And, I grew up on about 70 acres, and my uncle was a dairy farmer. And so, we showed dairy cows in the county fair when I was a kid, but didn't really start farming on my own until 2005 as what I consider a first generation farmer.
Well,
Something that oh, go ahead, Brett.
I have a question just about the way that you think about the business. So do you think of yourself as operating a direct beef and Christmas tree farm, or do you think about them as separate? And if you think about them as one, how important do you think it is to have a diversified stream? Like, can someone just be a Christmas tree farmer in Kentucky, do you think?
Yeah, I think, diversification, I think is very important in farming, because you can see what's going on right now in the beef industry, and who knows where that what direction that's going to go in. And of course, we're pretty insulated with direct marketing. We did farmers markets for 18 years, every Saturday for 18 years, 2 separate farmers market. But we grew an email customer base up close to 3,000 people. So we don't do farmers markets anymore. We do a e-blast, and 95% of our sales are home delivery, and this is in metropolitan Louisville. And so, that market is strong, and it just interestingly, and I'm off subject a little bit, but just interestingly, over the last 2 weeks, the phone or the email orders have gone out the roof like COVID, because people see this stuff about Argentina, they panic about the price. And so, but once we started into the Christmas tree business about 4 years ago, we cut our production by 50% on the beef cattle side. Still will always do it, want the cattle on the farm, want visitors to see the cattle and to share that experience with them. We'll have a little retail cooler in the gift shop selling beef. So I think you can definitely do both. Um, I think sometimes people get too diversified and they're doing, I want to do 100% on 2 things. And if you're doing 10 things, are you doing 25% on each one? And we want to do the best we can. But I think it still gets down to, sharing what you're doing on the farm and bringing people back. And I've been in a few mentorship programs over the years, being a mentor to mentees, and recently did one with USDA. And to be able to give back to people just like me who want to get started is just rewarding.
A quick question, as far as you mentioned, this is it sounds like an experience base. Your, operation that you're setting up there, and I believe you said Sherwood Acres there in Mercer County, your operation. But people that are looking to come cut, that may have never come and cut a fresh Christmas tree. I mean, I have a 12-year-old. I'm asking more, just as much for me as for everybody else. He still thinks I'm cool enough to travel with me a little bit. But if I were to load him up in the truck and after Thanksgiving, Jessica, okay,
That's
I'm
right.
going to wait. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to load up the day after Thanksgiving and come looking, let's say your place, for instance. What can I expect? Some activities, family style activities, anything like that? Or do I just come and cut a tree and we're done?
Yeah, no, we're all about the family part of it, and my daughter and her husband are involved, and they've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they're out there planting Christmas trees every spring with us, and they'll be working in the gift shop, and so we're trying to get that next generation to come along. But I will tell you right now, this year we're not cutting our trees. We're going to bring in those pre-cut trees, and so the experience will be a little bit different that way, but we still want the family to come. We've got a kids activity room where the kids will get to make something free of charge for their parents. We've got great photo opportunities. We have a 1935 Ford red 1-ton truck that's been fully restored that you can get your picture taken in front of. And obviously, we'd love to have people walk around the farm and see what the future is going to bring for us. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got our crafts and things, and we'll have hot chocolate and snacks and stuff. And so we're trying to build that experience. And this will be our first year, so it's a bit of a gamble. We're a little bit nervous because you can I think we tagged over 500 items in the gift shop that we bought from these crafts people. If you don't sell those, you can carry them until next year. But the Christmas trees, the 150 Christmas trees, guess what? If they don't sell, they're going in the mulch pile. So, that's the challenge of it. So it's exciting, but we're a little bit nervous. But we've done a lot of stuff. As I mentioned, I'm in the marketing business. We've joined Mercer County, Boyle County Chambers. We've got ribbon cutting on the first Saturday. Santa will be here most every Saturday. And and quite honestly, if you look across the state at other growers, they all do things a little bit different. Some of them you have a time set up. Barker's up in the Lexington area, been doing it a lot of years. You get on their website and you set up a time to go out there and cut a tree. And I think they have close to, I don't know, 100 to 150 people a day come in and pick their tree and cut their tree and take it home. And so they're all a little bit different, but I think we're the only ones that have a retail gift shop and kids activities combined.
And I can say it is beautiful because a couple of years ago, John hosted our annual Ag Field Day. And this is before the Christmas tree stuff started. And we were set up in the tobacco barn. And it was traditional tobacco barn, dirt floor that we were set up in. That tobacco barn has fully converted it into this beautiful gift shop. And if you know what a silo is, if anybody has that background of doing a silo for, silage to feed cattle, they've completely converted their silo into a bathroom, right? And it is a beautiful property and all like beautiful photo opportunities right near the lake. So it'll be a great spot. And I had that question too, like Ray mentioned, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I bring 3 small children out there,
Yeah.
are we going to have a saw? Are we going to have a little,
Is it
like a
gonna be
little
like National Lampoons? You're gonna travel all the way? Yeah.
because I've thought about that. Like you mentioned, different ones do different things where they're like kind of pre-cut for you when you arrived, or
Right.
do they start cutting it to make it easier? How much work does one put into cutting their tree, right?
Sure, sure. Well, the first phone call we made when we started talking about getting into this business was to our farm bureau agent, because how do you cut these trees, and can the
Smart.
customer cut these trees? And they're still okay with that. We would supply the saw, no chainsaws, and they would go out and they would cut the tree, and some people are going to want supervision, someone from our staff to go out there and help them, and some people are going to do it on their own. And so typically what the growers do throughout the state is they'll mark the trees that are for sale. They'll go out a few weeks ahead of time because you don't want a tree over here that's 3 feet tall being cut for somebody that wants to just stick it on the porch. And so they'll do that, and usually put the price tag on it, so when you cut a tree what you're getting into. And then at that point, some have sleds, some have carts, and you'll pull those trees back and then check out, just like you would anywhere else. And so, with us, we'll have an area where all the trees will be displayed so that they come in netted, and they'll all be on display so that you can look at the tree, turn it around, see which one fits you best. And we'll have trees. We buy a group of trees that are 6 to 7 foot, 7 to 8s, 9 to 10s, and so we'll have multiple sizes of these. Will be Fraser firs, and then once you pick out the tree, we'll re-net the tree so that you can put it in the back of your truck or put it on the car, or however you're going to transport that. And again, plenty of photo opportunities. And speaking of that, we have a lot of tree farms have photographers come out because their customers want to do a photo shoot at a Christmas tree farm. And so we have one coming this year just to give it a try. And so she'll be here with her clients. She'll have the whole day. And I think she's got 2 or 3 settings. And, we'll have the truck out there so that they can use that, or trees as the background. And, but they won't be there during the time that we're open normal hours. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we talk a little bit about, or we try to talk about, is the cultural component of what we do here with horticulture and the way that it fits into our lives. And I was recently out at Evans Orchard in the morning and had a nice hot apple cider. And it's the first hot apple cider I've had in a while, and it transported me to this time in my life where my family would go every year to cut a tree at Huber's Orchard across the river. I'm from Louisville, and if you bought a tree, you got a cup of free hot apple cider for the family to cut. And I can remember my dad and my mom all bundled up, and we'd have a blanket to lay down, and my dad would, we'd hem and haw about which tree, and this one or this one and this one. We take a little piece of paper to stick on one branch that we like, that one, and then maybe that one, and then eventually decide. And I was just reminded of like how fully integrated into like my memory that was, that here I am drinking this apple cider, thinking about cutting this tree. We'd also go up there and get pumpkins as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that more vividly than I remember just about any of my birthdays, just like a lot of other events. And I think that I don't know. I just think that is something we shouldn't overlook, the power and the value of that. And we'd have a little bit of a drive, and it was a little up and down hilly. So it was a little bit of the over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house kind of vibe. And I think as people are thinking about those traditions, it is a really was a really valuable one to me, and I have really good memories of my family doing that. And I'm sure we were all fighting at the time, actually, but in retrospect, yeah. And we would have the saws, and you would they this was a while back, so they didn't really supervise too much. You'd go out and pick your tree, and they'd wrap it up, shake it, and wrap it up, and do the whole deal. But I don't know. As I'm hearing you talk about this experience that you're trying to cultivate on your space, it's just bringing back a lot of memories for me.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what we want to reproduce. And my millennial kids, that's what they want for their children. And the challenge going forward is, what about the next generation and the next generation? And are we growing that, or are we declining from that? And the National Christmas Tree Association spends a tremendous amount of money. They have a checkoff program, just like the beef program does, for these big producers to put money into promoting the industry. And the Christmas tree industry is very much like the beef industry that I've been involved in for almost 20 years. You've got farmers that are in their late 50s, early 60s that are getting out, and who are the mentors to help these new people get in. And there's going to be a day when so even some of our producers here in the state are gonna exit. And what happens to those trees? You've got 10 or 15,000 trees on your farm. What's going to happen to those? And obviously, we're hoping somebody steps in and takes that over. And that's why I've talked to the Kentucky or the National Christmas Tree Board about a mentorship program for growers there, and I think it's important.
Well, Taylor Swift grew up on a Christmas tree farm.
I saw that.
I think we need to
How
lean
did
into
you know
that.
that, Brett?
I
I
think we
mean,
need to
only
lean
you would
into
know that.
that.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a historian.
Yeah, a little bit of a Swiftie,
Right.
Yeah, a little bit of a closet
closeted
Swiftie.
Swiftie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
I mean, she spoke highly of the fact that she did that. So I'm just thinking we've got, she's raised the profile of the NFL even higher. She's, wore a t-shirt about some Otter Foundation recently, and they got millions of dollars overnight in donations. So just saying, it's not a trivial thing to lean into, maybe.
Well, and
What can she do for Christmas tree
right.
growers?
Well, and just so you know, she and I share the same birthday. Not the
Oh,
same year, but the same birthday. So maybe I'm meant to be in a Christmas
Maybe
tree.
That's
that's an
right. It's
inroad.
all coming
Maybe
together.
that's an
mhm.
inroad. Maybe that's it.
Well,
Uh,
you have mentioned your fellow Christmas tree growers several times, and you can find all of those guys on the Kentucky Christmas Tree Grower Association website, which I had pulled up and looked, and it says, at the time of recording today, there are 56 days until Christmas. So they have a
Yes,
countdown on their website uh, to when Christmas will be here. But lots of great information on that website to find, if your local Christmas tree grower,
yeah.
and takes you links right to their farms.
yep,
Nice.
yep. Yeah, and we have, we're pretty active on Facebook, as well as our website. And so that's got all the information for us.
Mhm.
Sherwood Acres Christmas trees, both the website and the Facebook page. And so it's interesting. Just over the last 30 days, we've had, I don't know, 3 to 4 times doubled on our Facebook page, just because we're getting near the season and people are searching. And so we're
Mhm.
excited about that, obviously.
So
Yeah.
is Sherwood the name of the beef business as well?
It is, yeah, Sherwood Acres Beef and then Sherwood Acres Christmas Trees. Yep.
So and people can figure out how to source from you for beef kind of year round ish, I assume.
Yep.
And then you said you're going to open your gift shop on the 28th. Is
Yes,
that kind of the opening the gates for the Christmas
it
and
is.
tree season for you all?
Yeah, yeah, and we're that'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll be open every Saturday and Sunday, prior to Christmas. And we'll be there 10 to 4. And one thing I didn't really talk much about is, we have always been into environmental stewardship and sustainability, and I think that's one of the things that pointed me in the direction of Christmas trees. There's just nothing more sustainable than a Christmas tree farm, because we're planting every year, we're replanting, we have 2,000 feet of lake frontage on Harrington Lake, and we're very concerned about what happens to that lake, as it's a water source for Harrodsburg and Danville. And these Christmas trees create a tremendous sustainable crop for that. And we've done all kinds of things on the farm to protect that waterway, and just happy that the Christmas tree thing goes right along with that.
Seems like it almost, it doesn't sell itself. People still have to know that you're there. But for me, it's such like Brett said, I have such strong memories, and it's the smells and
Mm-hmm.
the colors of pumpkins and Christmas trees. But
The
all of
feel
those
of
things.
sap on your hands.
Yeah,
There
the
you go.
sticky, if you're a white pine, you stick to absolutely everything. Some of the ones have more resin than others, but there's no better smell to me than fresh greenery or a Christmas tree. Jessica, I don't know what your family feels about it, but I do love that smell. It's an easy sell for me.
We are very pro fresh Christmas tree. So, um, I don't think I have an artificial tree in my house anymore. So, it's one of our favorite things to get every year. Um, Now I've only had one kind of funky experience with one and to share, and it's an entomology thing, which
Mm.
in the end, what did I do being myself? I took pictures of it and wrote a newsletter article about it, where most people I think would have like burned everything. But they were a giant conifer aphids that had showed
Oh,
up on
wow.
my Christmas tree. And unfortunately, the worst part about them was, as aphids do, they have that sticky honeydew.
Mm.
I actually had to wash a lot of my Christmas ornaments because I thought my Christmas tree was just leaking a lot of sap. And just like Clark
Leaky.
Griswold, I was like, so much sap everywhere on my Christmas presents. Like, what's wrong with this tree? And then after Christmas was over, there was still sap everywhere. And I like got up in the tree and realized it was just full of these giant aphids that people often think are ticks on their
Mm.
tree because they are so big. They are huge. Um,
Giant even.
Giant.
Only you
But
would run into that, Jessica. I've never ran into anything like that, but it would, of course, happen to
but
you, and you would
but
identify them.
But it was okay because then I, used it as education.
Yeah.
And something else to mention about fresh Christmas trees, and I don't know, John, if you've shared this with people as they're gonna start getting trees, is once you're done with your tree at the end of the year, when it comes to, like, recycling, it's something that I like to do. In the past, when I didn't live on a farm, we would take ours to the Division of Fish and Wildlife has drop-offs that you can
Yep.
drop your Christmas tree, and they take it for fish habitat. Now that I live on a farm and I have several ponds on our farm, we are taking those and putting them in our ponds for fish habitat as well. So if you're looking for a place to take your, fresh cut tree afterwards, if you're not going to try to mulch it or, do something else with it, and so just throwing it out on the side of the street, you can do that. And they have a bunch of drop off locations all around the state for those for fish and wildlife.
Right. Yeah. One last thing. We have our Christmas wreath tables set up in there, and my brother-in-law and I will make, as many Christmas wreaths as people want to buy. And so we'll have that set up, and we'll bring in our greenery and decorate those, and that'll all be in the gift shop so people can come right in. And eventually I think we'll have some decorating classes where we'll either make the wreath and you can decorate it, or you'll actually make your own wreath and decorate your own. So that's ongoing.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the association, talking about your years and experience in this business. Your enthusiasm for it is really, you can sense it, which is really cool. I think the mentees that you mentioned that you've mentored over time we're lucky folks indeed, I think. So we'll put links to the association as well as to the business and anything else that kind of came up in the course of our conversation in the show notes. If you haven't already, please take time to leave us a quick review either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can email us at hortculturepodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at hortculturepodcast. Follow us there. Let us know what your favorite Christmas tree memory is, and we'll share ours back as well. We appreciate you joining us. We hope as we grow this podcast, you'll grow with us, and we'll see you down the road.